Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I got some gear on the table here and I bet you guys are wondering what it's for. So with colder temperatures just around the corner and winter quickly approaching, I figured it'd be a great opportunity to run through how I change my gear loadout when I'm preparing for a winter backpacking trip. I also wanted to go through some tips and tricks that I've picked up winter backpacking so far, so you guys better enjoy your experience out in the backcountry. So let's get started. So I'll start off with probably the most important tip when it comes to winter backpacking, and that's layering. Layering is a great way to not only maintain your comfort level out in the backcountry, it's also a great way to maintain and regulate your body temperature when you get into those cold weather situations. So for example, when you're out hiking, your body's going to be generating some excess heat and you might start sweating. So to prevent that from happening, it's really easy to just shed that top or middle layer, again, to make sure that you're not overheating and sweating when you're in those cold weather situations. On the flip side, when you get to camp at night, you're not moving around as much and your body's not going to be generating as much heat. So it's really easy to just add a layer or two to make sure that you stay warm and insulated. So when we talk about layering, I'll start off with the base layer or the layer of clothing that is closest to your skin. For this, I typically just use a synthetic shirt, which I have here. There's really nothing special to this, but the main purpose of the base layer is that it's moisture wicking and it's going to pull away that sweat and moisture away from your skin. So the next layer of clothing we'll talk about is the middle layer or the insulating layer. Now here I have a down jacket which I typically bring with me. This one here is a 650 fill power down jacket. If it gets colder, I do have a 900 fill power jacket here. Now, if you're unfamiliar with fill power and what those numbers mean, I did a video a couple months ago on down versus synthetic insulations, and I'll link that right up here where I explain that in further detail. Now, if it's going to get really cold, I might even add an extra layer. I have a fleece here that I'll wear under my down coat, but again, I usually only bring that if it's going to get maybe below the 10s or into the single digits. Last but not least is the outer shell. Here I have my raincoat. Now the outer shell, the goal there is to protect you from not only wind, but also moisture coming in from, say, rain, sleet, or snow. The raincoat has done a great job really protecting me from the wind and obviously keeping all my other layers dry. Now when it comes to the outer shell, if you do plan on doing a raincoat, you may want to size up. With all those layers under that raincoat, you may notice that the raincoat you typically bring with you where you only have a shirt under it might not fit you properly. So if you haven't purchased one already, it might be worth going a size up on your raincoat if you do plan on using it for winter backpacking. So when it comes to winter backpacking, one of the changes I'll make to my loadout is my sleep system. Not only will I switch out my sleeping bag, but I'll also switch out my sleeping pads as well. This here is typically what I would bring on a backpacking trip. This is something that's pretty lightweight and has a low R value. I think this has an R value of 1.3, which is pretty low. I've brought this on a couple cold weather backpacking trips with me and absolutely froze my butt off. So for that reason, I've switched to the Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite. This one has an R value of about 4.2, and it's done an overall great job keeping me nice and warm on those cold winter nights. Now, other than switching out my inflatable sleeping pad, I'll also bring this foam sleeping pad with me for a couple different reasons. One, it's really nice in terms of comfort level, just having another layer in between me and the ground. So I'll bring this to try and help me sleep better at night. But most importantly, I bring this with me to add more insulation to my sleep system. I'm not sure what the exact R value is on this pad. I've had this thing for years. I think it's a Thermarest Z-Rest. But again, this is just another layer of insulation that I have between me and that ground, so it does a good job of keeping all that warm air on my back. Now last but not least, I use this to prevent my inflatable pad from popping and also shifting around at night. I can't stand when I'm moving around at night, repositioning, and my sleeping bag or sleeping pad just completely shifts around. It's at the edge of the tent or whatever. This does a great job of making sure that that stays in place in my tent once I have this laid down on the bottom. So for those reasons, I'll bring this foam sleeping pad with me. So when we talk about sleeping bags, this is typically what I would bring with me on a backpacking trip. This here is a 30-degree synthetic sleeping bag. I've brought this in temperatures anywhere between the upper 90s and the lower 40s. So those 20 to 30 degree temperature rated bags are going to be pretty universal. You can bring those on a lot of different backpacking trips, but once you start getting below freezing, and especially in the teens and single digits, this is definitely not going to fit the bill for you. Now, for that reason, I've flipped over to a 0-degree sleeping bag here, and you can tell by the thickness alone that there is a lot more insulation in this 0-degree bag than my 30-degree bag. Now, this again is a synthetic sleeping bag, but overall I've been pretty pleased with it. I've gotten this into the single digits before, and I did get a little bit cold even with all my layers on, but it definitely did its job. I was able to get a solid night's sleep, and it kept me reasonably warm throughout the night. There was a couple instances where I got cold, but it definitely did its job. So one thing to take into consideration when you're looking at a low temperature rated bag is the amount of space that it's going to take up in your backpack. This one here is obviously a synthetic bag, so it's not going to compress down as well as a down sleeping bag will. But I was still surprised in my compression sack how much space this thing took up. It covered up pretty much the entire bottom of my backpack. So I had to actually readjust and think differently about how I actually packed my backpack. So again, make sure if you are looking into a low temperature rated bag that you take into consideration the amount of space that it's going to take up in your backpack. Another change that I'll make to my loadout when it comes to winter backpacking is footwear. Typically when I'm going on a backpacking trip, I'll bring with me here these trail runners. They're a really nice, lightweight, and comfortable option if I plan on doing some high mileage hiking. But when it comes to winter backpacking, I'm flipping to the tried and true hiking boot for a couple different reasons. First and foremost is the padding and insulation that the hiking boot can provide. The insulation, the padding on here is a lot thicker than what you'll see in a trail runner. Trail runners are meant to be streamlined, lightweight, so they can't afford to have that extra padding in there. That padding does a great job of keeping my feet nice and warm and insulated when I'm hiking out in the snow in those cold weather conditions. Another benefit with the hiking boot is the high ankle support that they can provide. So when you're out hiking in snowy or icy conditions, the trails are going to be slippery, and you may not even be able to see what you're actually hiking on because there's snow, maybe rocks, roots, stumps, you name it. So that ankle support is going to provide a great option for preventing you from getting any foot injuries when you're out hiking. Last but not least, the reason I really do enjoy hiking boots as opposed to trail runners for winter backpacking is the build quality and durability. So the hiking boots, the ones I have here, have a hard-covered toe, which is going to do a great job of preventing water from seeping in through the top of the boot. The trail runners here have a mesh toe, which are going to be prone to letting in water and getting your feet wet if you were to backpack in the snow with these. And another feature when it comes to durability is the tread on the bottom of the shoes. So the boot definitely has a thicker tread, which is going to do a great job giving you that added traction when you're out backpacking in the snow. Whereas the trail runner doesn't have the same tread quality as the hiking boot, so you may notice you might slip a little bit more if you were to bring something out like a trail runner into winter conditions. So for those reasons, I definitely flip over to a hiking boot when it comes to winter backpacking. So a couple more tips that I have for you guys when it comes to winter backpacking is make sure that you're still staying hydrated. For whatever reason, it's easy to forget to stay hydrated when you're out backpacking. Maybe it's the fact that you're not sweating as much because it's a little bit colder, but you still want to make sure that you're getting an adequate amount of water into your system when you're out backpacking. You're still going to be burning calories, you're still burning energy, so again, make sure that you're still getting enough water intake even when it comes to winter backpacking. So another bit of advice that I have for people that are just getting into winter backpacking is I highly recommend getting your feet wet and just starting out with a little bit of a warmer temperature for your first winter or cold weather backpacking trip. When I first started backpacking in colder temperatures, I started out, I think it was the low 40s, and I absolutely froze my butt off. I wasn't prepared at all. I didn't have any layers with me. But I was glad I did it at that temperature range because I didn't run into any dangerous scenarios at that time. I really got an opportunity to get my gear dialed in, figure out what changes I need to make, and now I'm able to really backpack in colder temperatures because I've had those experiences before, figuring out what changes I had to make. So again, for those reasons, I really recommend that anybody that's new to winter backpacking, start off slow, start off with a little bit warmer temperature, maybe 30, 40 degrees, and then work your way down into those colder temperatures so you know what to experience and expect in those cold weather situations. Alright everyone, that pretty much wraps it up for today's video. I really hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, go ahead and like and subscribe down below, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.